We are now in Visual C Sharp 2008 development environment. I have already created a project of type console application. Name of the project is partial classes. Let me add two new code files here. So let me add part1.cs. So add class okay. Now let's rename the class part1 to customer. So we have class customer in namespace partial classes. Let's add one more file which is part2.cs. Let's again rename part2 with customer. So now we have two physical files containing definition of class customer. So part1.cs, here you can see class customer, and part2.cs, here also you can see class customer. Both are part of same namespace partial classes. Let's compile and see what happens. You can see here it has given an error. The namespace partial classes already contains a definition for customer. This is because we have defined customer class twice in same namespace. Now let us go back and do a little change in the code. So let me just add partial keyword in both definitions. So I have added in part1. So let's go to part2 and add partial keyword here. There we go. Now we have marked both definitions as partial. Let us compile and see what happens. You can see that it has successfully compiled. So now we have class customer definition split into two partial parts. Let us now add some members in these parts. Let me add couple of public fields in part1.cs. So let me go to class customer and let's add public integer cust id. Let me initialize it with 0. Then public string cust name, and let me initialize it with null. Let me add a simple method in part2.cs in class customer. So let's add a method public void print customer, then console.writeLine, customer details are let's print cust id. And let's print cust name. That's it really. Now let us go to program.cs. Let us go to main method and create an instance of class customer. So customer C1 is equal to new customer. Let me type C1 dot. You can see here it is displaying both member variables cust ID and cust name and method print customer. Visual Studio has intelligently combined both partial class definitions. Let us now set some value for cust ID and cust name. So C1.custID, let me set it to 1, and C1.custName, let me set it to Prasad. Now let's call the print customer method C1 dot print customer. Let's compile it and run. So it has successfully compiled it. So let's run it. You can see that it has successfully compiled and it is printing customer details as expected. So it is printing cust ID 1 and cust name as Prasad. So this is how a class definition can be split into two partial class definitions. Compiler combines partial class definitions and then compiles it. So at the end there is only one definition of combined class, and hence you cannot have conflicting member definitions in partial class definitions. Let us see what happens if we have conflicting member definitions. Let us open part2.cs and let me add some code here. So here I am adding cust ID. So now we have cust ID member defined in both partial class definitions. So let us compile it. You can see that it has given an error. The type partial classes.customer already contains a definition for cust ID. So thus one needs to be careful while defining partial class members. To simplify, just keep one thing in mind. Even if the definition is split, it is still one class, and hence whatever is conflicting in a class is conflicting when you split the class into partial classes. Let me now show you how ASP.NET is using partial classes. I have a web application here. Let's go to Solution Explorer. Here you can see an ASPX file, default.aspx. Let me add couple of controls here. Inside this default.aspx, maybe a button and a text box. So here I have added controls. So let's save it. So basically I have changed the user interface of this default.aspx. Let us now go back to Solution Explorer and expand the default.aspx. Here you can see two files, default.aspx.cs and default.aspx.designer.cs. Let us open default.aspx.cs. You can see here partial class underscore default. Let's now open default.aspx designer.cs. Here also you can see partial class underscore default. You can also see here a comment. This code was generated by a tool, and changes to this file may cause incorrect behavior and will be lost if the code is regenerated. You can see here the member definitions of controls which we added. So you can see text box, then you can see button. So this partial class definition is auto-generated and is related with user interface. The partial class definition default.aspx.cs is not generated and hence can be edited by developer, and the changes made by developer remain intact in this file even if the default.aspx.designer.cs gets generated again, or to simplify things, even if you go and change user interface again. So whenever we edit the user interface of default.aspx, the default.aspx.designer.cs will get generated again, but it will not touch code written by developer in default.aspx.cs file. So this is how ASP.NET is using partial classes here.